why and how this is useful. We are a center in Germany for for a disease what is called Niemann-Pick type C disease. This disease is very rare. We have about 50 patients in Germany, maybe 100 when we calculate patients from Switzerland and Austria together. And we got this patient referred to us because he had elevated liver enzyme, hepatomegaly, and this disease was sort of assigned to him. However, although the parents were consanguineous, the people or the doctors in the periphery were happy because they found one variant where they didn't even know that it's the pathogenic ones. However, we had a biochemical test to prove whether we have NPC in the patient. But this biochemical test, what we call the Philippine staining, was also not pathogenic, so it was not obvious. Despite these doubts, what the doctors should have had, they started treatment of the patient, and this treatment really is, although important to patient with NPC, is not one what you would give a child because of severe side effects. So we looked at the patient, we didn't find really the mutations in the first run because we always thought it's autosomal recessive. We have to find a second hit in this gene. We did not find it. We always thought we have to find this, it's a parent that's heterozygous, the child is homozygous for this. However, looking at the data again and again, we realize that we have a homozygous mutation in the patient with sites in glycogen storage disease type 6, and which is associated with hepatomegaly, and this has a growth retardation in children, what this child did not have. However, when you look at this, the hepatomegaly and everything improves and disappears around puberty. And then we looked at the mother, and the mother had also a homozygous mutation. And she remembered, oh yes, there was something in my childhood. And it's just growing out, and I don't have it anymore. So we did prevent a wrong treatment to this patient just by establishing the diagnosis for him. In Germany, and I learned here, that is a similar situation because the healthcare system is expensive in every country. Our health insurance always asks, we don't really need genetic tests at all because they are not treatment relevant. So we are very much into giving arguments to our healthcare system why we believe and think that genetic is indeed therapeutic relevance. Give you one example. There was a child published with an inflammatory bowel disease. This child, although just 3 years old, underwent 100 surgeries. These colleagues from America, they consulted basically experts all over the world, had weekly conversations about this child, and they couldn't solve it. They just did not find the cause, what happens. So these group, they decided to sequence the entire genome or the entire exome, and they found one mutation in this gene, SIRE, which is indicative for hemophagocytotic histiocytosis. This is a terrible disease. The patients would die because of liver failure, though they did liver biopsy, bone marrow analysis. They did not find indication for this disease. Yeah? But because the child would die anyway because of this condition, together with the parents, they decided they would do a stem cell transplantation in this child. And what was extremely surprising, after 5 months, the child was basically cured. So they still don't know how this disease connects to each other. It's not known that SIRE really caused an inflammatory bowel disease, but the child is cured. And I just contacted this group a year ago, and the child was still healthy. So after 2 years of publishing, so that was really great and excellent. And basically, you save a life. Give you another example why genetics is important. Here was a child with mental retardation, epilepsy, and again liver failure. Liver transplantation was considered based on the condition. Now, again, the colleagues sequenced whole exome, identified 2 mutations in this gene, what we call Twinkle disease, and it is indeed, unfortunately, a severely neurological disease with liver infection, leading to death in the child. So based on this information, the families with the doctors decided against a liver transplantation because this liver transplantation would not give health to the child, and the child would die anyway. So basically, they stopped the treatment. The child died 6 months later, didn't have to suffer from severe surgery, and the doctors saved their liver to give it to a different child. This has now a chance for life. It's again, genetic was absolutely necessary to prove the diagnosis and to guide the treatment. Now, genetics going even further. I gave you examples where a mutation in general leads to a different treatment strategy for the patient. Now I give you one example where even the mutation type directs the treatment, not just the gene. I think you're all aware of the condition what we call cystic fibrosis. In Germany, we have 1,000 or 2,000 patients suffering from the disease. We have more than 4,000 patients with this disease. And when you open a textbook, you will see that it's written that these patients usually die before they enter the age 20. In Germany, we have already extended the lifespan to the age of 40 years, the average lifespan. And we are in particular intriguing because we consider this also as a very important disease in our rare disease center. We would like to improve it and increase it to 60 years, which is close to a normal lifespan then, just in changing the treatment. And what helps us is that these different mutations, there are more than 2,000 mutations in one gene, in the CFTR gene, what is a chloride channel described. They can be grouped into different classes. So one where we have just the protein is not produced, one where we have a misfolded protein, where we have a folded protein but it's not activated, one where the channel has a reduced conductance, and so on. And it is really surprising that in the last years, drugs were found which specifically target, in particular, these different mutations. So we have these different drugs which go to class 1, lumacaftor to class 2, and ivacaftor to the opening to the class 3 mutations. So we have even, based on the mutation type, a different drug which should be applied and help much better than the other one. Now coming back to the genetics, is everything solved? No, unfortunately not. Even for the intellectual disability, and that's a project we are doing together with you here in Jordan, we can estimate that about 50% of all patients with intellectual disability cannot be solved with sequencing the genome, and we have to work on this. So there may be genomic mutations which analyze this, and we are learning a lot about the biology still these days on the genome organization. And there's a beautiful paper from Stefan Mundlos in Berlin who has shown that between these different genes we have so-called chromosomal boundaries which activate certain genes or not. And if you have mutations here, although they are not really associated with the gene, we have an activation across these borders, and other genes are being activated or inactivated, and in this case lead to malformation of the skeletal system. So we have to learn this and use this and use animal models to find out. Also, we do not really detect the inversions with whole exome sequencing, and whole genome may help us a bit, that it means we still have this certain fragment, but it's in the other direction. It's switched. That is what we call insertions. And we do not know a lot about promoter mutations, intranet mutations, and so on and so on. Because there's a long way ahead of us. Where do we see the future developments of medical genetics in medicine? There's one thing where we can say, maybe we shouldn't wait until the patient is diseased. Maybe we should start earlier and predict whether or not the disease may occur in a patient. Again, the question comes up, how much does it cost can be afforded, and even in a rich country like Germany, it's a huge discussion on this, if you can afford it. When we make a calculation on the other hand, you can see the numbers that a newborn which is severely affected, 1 day in the clinic costs about $8,000, and this is similar in Germany. We calculate about 5,000 to 6,000 euro for a newborn just for 1 day in the intensive healthcare system. When you think about the genome that it costs for consumables, $1,000, and you see all the equipment, personal informatics, what we have to use, give it another 5,000. So, and downscale this per year, you end up with about $65 per person per year. It's about 50 euros per person per year. That is something we really can afford, also in the healthcare system, and it may help us to predict certain conditions. About what conditions am I talking? There are conditions which will appear later, which have a very strong genetic background. And this private clinic consortium in the States is already applying these conditions, what they call the Geisinger healthcare system. And this, although private, although having very much thought about money, they are offering to the patient genetic testing for free, because they think they can prevent certain diseases. And these diseases are in particular the cancer disease genes, breast cancer familiar, colon cancer, and the cardiomyopathies, so one associated where you can really predict is some patient or where the patients need a very strong management. I'll give you a little bit of the insight what genetic is doing in cancer treatment. What we learned in the last few years actually is that the cancer is not genetically one cancer, that when we biopsy from here the kidney cancer of different positions, that we get different genetic mutations depicted in this scheme over here. So this explains why a cancer maybe reacts to a positive to our treatment, but on the other hand, that over the time of treatment, it reappears because we have other mutations in other parts of the cancer, which then take over to the cancer development. The good news is that we know now in sequencing entire cancer that we have different points in signal transduction, what we can target is different compounds, how we call this, or treatments or drugs. And there are a lot of already described in the literature which are being used for different conditions which target different genes. These are the genes which are listed, and these are the drugs which are being used for cancer treatment. We have outsourced a company what's called Genes and Therapy, which investigates these different genes right now to help to improve the cancer treatment in general. We can also use to look at circulating tumor DNA. Tumor is being destroyed by our defense system, and we can measure the DNA which is released from these cancer cells. We can use it for biomonitoring, how treatment is developing, how the cancer is developing over the time, so that we can use now genetics in the whole pipeline of cancer treatment. Pedigree analysis, and determining the high-risk relatives, even we are considering population screening in my lab. We can use it for these circulating tumor DNA and early cancer detection, together, of course, with other diagnostic pathways. We can use it in first-line treatment, together with surgery, chemo, and radiation, again for monitoring. And if we have no treatment response, we will look for the cancer mutation-based pathway intervention. And again, this looks very, very promising and is being implemented into the healthcare system in general. Now, we have great tools. We have cost-efficient tools. We are faster in general. However, we need a better disease management still. We have to improve also how we can use therapeutic intervention for these different cancer and cardiomyopathies metabolisms. We have to improve also our diagnostic range. All these genetic things have to be associated with genetic counseling. They need to be done in special teams. We need clinical guiding of the patients, and education of the general population, that also means education of the doctors. So we implemented an academy to teach the doctors in our area with lectures and workshops that we have to consider rare disease patients. We have a forum meets the experts and so on. So this is a lot of work that needs to be done because science and medicine evolve so quickly right now. For the future of medicine, we have to think differently. We have to think across these different specializations. We have to form new teams coming together. We know it is a challenge in the healthcare system, but I think if we can meet these challenges, we really can do much better with patient care as we did in the past. Thank you so much for your attention.
Anybody have any questions to Dr. Olaf? Right.
Yeah, I can see
Mike? First of all, I would like to thank you for this very nice presentation. Actually, we are very happy while going through your lecture. My name is Mohammed Arakai. I'm a clinical geneticist here for the Royal Medical Service. Actually, we are utilizing our exome sequencing in our service provided to our patients. As you said, we have many problems as we have a community with high consanguinity. We ended up with a gene with no pathophenotype, non-phenotype. So, we stuck there. I have around maybe 10 patients, You need further steps. You need to look for the function of the gene. And I think it's this impossible here in Jordan because, this is our country. It's part of the therapy.